97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Caplan, powered by InsideTheBirds.com.
I think we have the ability to do something really special with this group, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
It's powered by the Inside the Birds podcast today. It's Adam Caplan from InsideTheBirds.com. Football at 4 is brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. Go to PlaySugarHouse.com. Win real money. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to play. So, we told you the big news earlier at Eagles camp, and Adam Caplan will bring you right in on this is Andre Dillard. So, I guess he's out for the year with a torn tricep. He's going to have surgery. So, what is next now at the left tackle spot?
Yeah, so just checking into it, it's probably going to be Jason Peters just because of his experience. Jordan Mailata, who's been backing up a left tackle and took over for Dillard today after Dillard left practice. He's never played in a regular season NFL game. He's dressed for some, but he's never played in a regular season game. And remember, guys, he, like all NFL players, missed all of May and June. That's over 24 practices. There's no preseason games. And here's the big one. He missed the first 2 weeks of training camp because he was on the COVID-19 list. So he just has not had enough time. And I'm told two things about Mailata. Camp has been up and down, except for today. He had his best day at camp and was very, very good, and that's a good sign. I just would be kind of shocked if they went with Mailata. I know how much they like him, especially Jeff Stoughton, their offensive line coach. I just don't think there's enough time here to get to. If they would have had him in the offseason, they'd know where he was at and whether he'd be ready. It would stun me if they would stick him in at left tackle, considering he just has not had enough time over there and to practice and to get ready for the season.
All right, so they got Jason Peters to fill in for Brandon Brooks, and then this happened. So that's two starting offensive linemen out for the year. Do the Eagles have the depth to handle this?
Well, right now, Mike, it's funny. I'm writing a piece for InsideTheBirds.com as we speak, and I have an Excel file with every free agent and where they line up and how NFL people think about them. There are some left tackle considerations out there. Donald Penn, you might remember him, formerly of the Raiders and Redskins and other teams, and Vikings. He's a mid-30s. He's serviceable. Cordy Glenn was a former first-round pick, you might remember, many years ago. Didn't work out with him last season with the Bengals. They cut him. He was a former first-round pick of the Bills. Started many games. He's a big guy. He could play left tackle. Not a lot of options. They do not have any experience now at all as backups. As a matter of fact, if it goes the way that I think it's going to go, Pryor starts at right guard and Peters goes back to left. All the backups have never played in an NFL game, so they're going to have to do something on the street. Wouldn't shock me if they added two players, but they're going to have to add at least one going forward here because they need experience. And with the season, Mike, coming up here in 2 weeks, in fact, I'm told they actually start preparing for week one next week. Scrimmage, I'm also told, is on Sunday, so they got to get chomping here at the bit with bringing some players in.
If something does happen to Jason Peters due to his age and he gets hurt, is it possible that Lane Johnson goes to left tackle at all?
You know, it's funny, Hunter. Over the years, I was told that Lane was resistant to do it. Would do it if he. If they said, "Look, we really need to do it," he would do it. But he got so used to playing the right side, and yeah, he was drafted as Peters' backup, Peters' replacement. But he did so well there, and Peters played longer than they expected. They made a decision to keep everything status quo, and he would do it. It was explained to me if they asked him, but he'd rather not do it. He'd rather stay on the right side. So there are not a lot of choices here for them internally. This is really all they have, and I'd be stunned. Although I'd be very intrigued if they put Mailata in there because he's healthy. But it's just based on everything that I've heard today, it's unlikely. But I always say never say never.
Yeah.
It's always going to be up to Jeff Stoutland.
So, real quick on Dillard, how was he doing? How was his performance so far in camp? Were they, there was a lot of questions about him. Were they starting to feel comfortable with what they were going to get from Andre Dillard this year?
Yeah, he didn't have a good camp. Wednesday was his worst practice at camp. I'd heard at least 6 bad plays. Earlier in camp, he started, remember, Jeff Mosher reported that he had a slate knee issue that cleared up after a couple days. He also had another issue, so he fought through it. He also had. He was not practicing on Monday when I was there. I was there Monday and Wednesday. He had his right wrist taped, and he was riding a bike. So it was just not a great camp for him. That's the truth from multiple sources. So we'll look. He's going to get the all.
Wow, it looks like we just lost Adam. He just kind of vanished from.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is.
There he is. We got him.
I'm here, guys.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. Yeah. I might have hit a dead zone in my office, but no. What happened was, look, Dillard had a less than stellar camp. They're just going to have to go with in-house.
Yeah, we're losing you, Adam. If you can hear me, we've lost you again, and I don't know what's going on. You just kind of dropped out. He's mentioning that they got to go with in-house options, I guess, because Andre Dillard, he said, who was not having a good camp, and he said at least 6 plays the other day that he was not did not perform very well in. All right, let's bring Adam back in there. You were saying something about in-house, and then you just dropped out.
Yeah. So basically, Mike, there's really nowhere else they can go here internally. They're just going to have to do some. Would shock me if they make a trade. What happens is there are 2 things that you do. Personnel people tell me. You look at what backup players there are that you have a decent grade on, that maybe have some upside and you want to take a look at them, you trade for them. Or you trade for a veteran who you know is going to be a backup, and you go that route. And then the other option, obviously, is you go in the free agent route, and it's just, again, it's not good. Now, guard, by the way, there are a lot of them out there. If they decide they don't want to go with Pryor, or they certainly need to get now, if Pryor's going to be the starting right guard, they have to go out and get somebody on the street for depth. Josh Klein, formerly the Vikings, is out there. Ronald Leary, who was cut by the Broncos, is out there. Larry Warford has opted out. So for people who ask me on Twitter, he's not playing this season. John Jerry's out there as a former first-round pick. Ted Larson, Kevin Pamphile. There are not a lot of great choices, but there are a lot more guards out there than there are left tackles.
This has to be a concern long term, right? I mean, here's Andre Dillard coming into his 3rd year, and he only has a handful of games. Like, do they think about what's going to happen with do they draft another left tackle? I mean, what does this mean for Andre Dillard for the Eagles long term?
No, I mean, right now, when you really look at it, they want Dillard to be their left tackle this season. This is why they did not re-sign Peters to be their left tackle. Had Brandon Brooks not gotten hurt, I don't know if we're even going to see Jason Peters back here. So it's kind of amazing how it worked out. Brandon Brooks' injury obviously is problematic. He'll be back next year. His base salary of $10 million is fully guaranteed. As I was told, it was fully guaranteed in March based on contract structure. So they'll get him back next year. But this is a big blow for them. And they can't have very many more, man. This guy they traded up for. Remember last year, folks? I think some people forget about that, but they actually traded up to get Dillard.
Well, I guess we were batting this back and forth, Adam, which was, let's say Peters plays well and he wants to play again. Now you're, okay, do we bring Peters back again, or do we go hand this over to now a guy who's going to be entering a 4th year and it still hasn't played?
Well, you're talking about Dillard or Mailata? What are you talking about here?
Yeah, Dillard.
Yeah, well, Dillard is actually, he's in year 2, so he'll be in year 3 next year.
Okay.
Right. Mailata is a guy that they love. I'm just telling you, Eddie had an off season, and we're probably looking at Mailata being a left tackle, but he didn't have an off season. He's not having a preseason. He's just too far behind. It's too bad, because there's a guy that is a super freak athlete and made this incredible conversion from never playing football before in his life to having such elite traits. And right now, I don't see it, but we'll see.
All right, let's look at some other injuries. Avery was the guy they traded for last year. Didn't use him a lot, but the theory was, okay, once he's in our system, we'll get him, so he's in our system. And any plans for him? What was the actual injury? You also have Derek Barnett out there, so they've lost 2 players at that position now. Yeah,
he actually, I'm told, has a slight knee sprain, Jannard Avery, and he also has a bone bruise. So look, let's put it this way. I was there in practice on Wednesday. I saw it with my own eyes. It looked terrible. He was carted off. It looked bad. I mean, it looked bad. It happened 15 feet in front of me. I saw it. Saw him go down and grab his knee. But they escaped one. Their plan for him anyway will be 10 to 12 snaps anyway if he dresses. Right now he's their 5th end anyway. Not every team dresses 5 DNs. One other guy, though, to take a look at, although I didn't think Casey Tuchel had a chance to make the team, he's now in the conversation right now to make the team. And remember, Derek Barnett's dealing with an ankle injury. He won't be ready till week 1 at least. If it's great if they get him back then, but I'm not sold that he'll be back week 1. So Casey Toohill, folks, it's too bad we don't have a preseason because he's really come on the last week.
What's the deal with Derek Barnett? He's still remaining out?
Yeah, he's got the ankle injury. I was told it was going to be at least 4 weeks, and it's going to push him up to really at least next week to start working. He's missed 3 weeks, so we'll see. We'll see what he can do. This is not good. A guy that, by the way, this is almost a contract year for him because the Eagles could get out of his contract and not owe him a dime if they cut him before the first day of free agency in March. And that's $10 million. If he's on the roster, then that base salary of $10 million is fully guaranteed. So this is a pivotal year for the former first-round pick.
All right, we're talking with Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. Make sure you make that part of your day, the Inside the Birds podcast, powering football at 4 here. We'll stay on defense. We'll stay at end. Some of the standouts so far, I've been reading a lot about Josh Sweat. Is this a guy that we might see more from this year?
Yeah, he's been my guy at training camp. So just for multiple people I talked to about him, and plus my own eyes the 2 days I was there, the guy has taken his game to another level. I just because of you guys are aware of the nerve issue he had in his leg where it was very bad, the injury that he suffered in high school. That's why some teams had him off their draft board, but the Eagles took a chance on the 4th rounder, and he's been phenomenal. This is his best camp of the 3 years, and he's actually practicing more than he ever has in training camp, and not only is he their third end, it's going to be fascinating to see how much more he plays than last season. See, the question, Mike, with him is because of that knee that got repaired and had the nerve issue, you wonder how many snaps could he handle if he had to play a lot of snaps. We're talking about 40 or 50, or is it just 20 to 25, which is normal for him. So it's fascinating. He's had a phenomenal camp, and he's so long, and he's 35.5-inch arms. His arms are 2 inches longer than Andre Dillard, who's the left tackle.
Yeah, he's a physical specimen, to say the least. We'll see what kind of impact he has. A couple other guys on the defensive side of the ball that I want to get your opinions on. I guess last week during Football at 4, right here, Adam Caplan, you said that Avonte Maddox, he's going to be the starter. But what about the spot he used to play, which is that nickel slot? How's that looking?
Yeah, it's Nicole Roby-Coleman. That was over before training camp started. They signed to be their nickel corner. He's their nickel corner. That's already been decided. Crevon LeBlanc will be their backup nickel, and if they need someone to play backup safety, he can do it because he's played safety before. But here's the problem that they have, though. This is what Jeff Mosher and I talked about on our show Inside the Birds that dropped on Thursday. It's really important to understand this. Right now, if the season started today, Sidney Jones would technically be their top outside corner. Sidney Jones had a injury-marred training camp, no question about it. He's been an underachiever, the 4% second-round pick. I don't know that he's good enough. Let's call it like it is. I just don't know that he's good enough. Russell Douglas clearly has shown that he's not good enough. There's some days Russell Douglas at training camp, as it's been explained to me, he looks like a guy that you want on the field and has a chance. And there are other days he just is not good enough. So to me, they brought Trevor Williams back, the former Penn State corner who was with the Chargers at the start of some games, but I don't know if these guys are going to be good enough. If Maddox or Slay gets hurt, I just don't know if they're going to be good enough.
Yeah, that's interesting because Jim Schwartz, it sounded as if, Adam, that Sidney Jones has run out of time.
Yeah, I was surprised he said that. Now, again, we don't know what he meant by that. That's the thing. So that's the thing you have to take a look at. There's no question about it. You can't just assume that Sidney Jones is going to be on the team, by the way. I'm not saying they're cutting him, but this is year 4 for him. I know he didn't really play in year 1, but it's kind of like now or never. He's got to show them something, and that's not happened yet. Hey,
Darius Slay living up to the hype? I mean, is he as advertised?
Yeah, terrific. Yes, I heard he's been terrific. Leadership, you kind of, as one person with the Eagles said to me, when you're around him, he's just got that top corner swag. You want that confidence. And that's what they're going to need because, guys, they're going to play a lot of man coverage this year, and the corners are going to travel, particularly Slay. And that's important because when you go up, who they're going to go up against, Terry McLaurin in week 1, then those Rams receivers. They're going to play the Bengals, who are loaded at wide receiver. Dallas, obviously, with those 3 stars. And the Giants, who torched them last year. Remember what Darius Slayton did to them last year. How about Slay on Slayton this year? You might see that.
That would be something that would be pretty cool because Last year, the Eagles had no one to defend any of these guys. It seemed like they were, people running free. It's good to hear that he has, been. And you mentioned last week that it sounds like he's going to follow the number one receiver around. So that's something that's been different from the past.
Yeah, and it's as Jim Schwartz said, it may not be every week, but they have the ability to do that, and that's big for them because that issue has impacted their coverage as much as Moshe and I criticized, particularly myself, last year, Jim Schwartz. There were things holding Jim back from calling the kind of game he wanted, and it's clearly, to me, it's the cornerback position. When is the last time they had a number one corner? Probably Asante Samuel.
Yeah. Speaking of impact players in Darius Slay, what about Jalen Reagor? Do you anticipate that he will be an impact player for this offense?
Yeah, he's had a great camp, Hunter. He's had a phenomenal camp. Hands once in a while, the drop passes that he had in college, you worry about that. He does bobble the ball a little bit, which is called double catching, but overall, he's been phenomenal. And by the way, he was probably the best punt returner in college football last season. Expect him to do that for the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm interested to see I'm really interested to see how they work him in. Is he going to be moving all over? Is he going to have a set spot? And obviously we've heard good things about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside early in camp too. So what kind of role he ends up having, and then you throw the kid Hightower in. So I'm really interested to see what Doug does with all these guys.
Yeah, and remember they got younger, which is important, and they wanted to get younger at receiver. They've done that. Arcega-Whiteside is lined up at multiple positions. So is Reagor. I mean, Rager's kind of done everything in training camp. Less in the slot. He's been their starting X receiver. He's also played the Z. They've got versatility. And look, Peterson likes that. He likes the receivers playing different positions. So it's going to be fascinating to see what they look like in Week 1 against Washington. And by the way, the way you beat Washington is not running the football. You throw it. They do not have a very good secondary.
There's been a lot of positive things said about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Is there something that has stood out in camp where it's like, wow, okay, that's different? Besides the health, because I know the health side was definitely big with him last year.
Yeah, I would say this. When you look at Arcega-Whiteside, he's catching the football. Not that he was ever explosive, but he's moving better, and he gives him a big target. So, look, it's what you were hoping for to see in year 2 in terms of he's made improvement, but they drafted him to be a starting receiver. I don't know that he'll ever start, but he certainly has improved, and they need him. He's a big body, and that's something right now they don't really have, someone who's physical other than Alshon Jeffrey, and Jeffrey remains on the active PUP list, though. As I reported about 6 weeks ago, he's got a real chance to come off that list in September sometime, but they don't know yet. But as Doug Peterson confirmed, they're going to increase his running now.
I want to get your opinion on this, Adam, because you got now a new old left tackle. You've got a new right guard. We know Lane Johnson is pretty steady. We knew Kelsey is pretty steady. Where's Isaac Seumalo working in all this?
Yeah, he's great. This is, I'll tell you what, it's funny because the media in Philly doesn't really, not that anyone can study offensive line. I don't know what I'm looking at, quite frankly, with offensive linemen most times, but just talking to the Eagles about in the last 3 years, he is so good. Mike, he's on that list of not quite Pro Bowler. He's on like the next tier. He's just so consistent. He had a couple bad games last season, but overall he's just really, really good. Now his first 2 seasons were a disaster, 16 and 17. And then I'm told that the light went on in 18, the off season. It's actually, ironically, it's when we first started doing shows, the Inside the Bird show. And one of my first notes was that he has been the surprise of their off season. That wound up really holding on, and then they extended his contract. Now he's really, really good. In fact, I'm told Kelsey and Seumalo have had phenomenal training camps. Just absolutely fantastic.
That's good to hear because that's a spot that he started there. They had Wisniewski, they had Womack, and then they finally gave it to him, and he's kind of run with it.
Right.
Forget about Womack.
Forgot about him.
A couple other things with Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, the new Inside the Birds logo, by the way. I told Moshe, I said, you look in better shape than Moshe does in this picture.
Well, I am down about 12 pounds, but yeah, it's as I told Jeff, I think they're too lifelike, man. I don't know. I just I was kind of shocked by it. Well, look, they told our business manager, Josh Weinfeld, said, get your wives to take your pictures, and we did. And we got the logos back. We were like, oh, my God, this is actually us. Oh, my goodness.
Well, check out the new logo on the podcast. It is now available. And I want to get your take because I heard Carson say the other day, man, like 5 years. 5 years of Carson Wentz, and you look at when you have that franchise quarterback, you don't want to waste his prime years. So when you look at Wentz in his prime, moving into his prime years, and this team right now, kind of Wentz in year 5.
I feel pretty good about it. We actually just interviewed Dan Orlovsky of ESPN, and we actually just basically talk about Wentz. Jeff and I, we did Inside the Birds TV, which is going to be posted on Friday, and I got to tell you, I agree with Dan. I've always been a Wentz supporter, but the mechanics are the thing that need to get cleaned up. I like that they've revamped the coaching room. I know that Press Taylor is going to be the guy who's going to be mostly be with him, but here's the thing that happened last year. He was pressing a little bit when he didn't have his good enough pass targets. There will be no excuse this year because you've got Deshaun, knock on wood, he's healthy. He's been tremendous when he's practiced. He doesn't practice a lot. Reagor's going to be a factor. I know he's a rookie. Hightower's going to make the team. He could run. Or think Whiteside's improved. Ward, we didn't talk about, is doing really well. He's been one of the greatest stories of camp, no question, at the receiver position. And Deontay Burnett, who's been a surprise, so it's going to be hard for him to make it if Jeffrey comes back in September. And Quez Watkins, who could run. So the speed issue is no longer there. They've solved that issue. I think the hour continues to point up. He is in his fifth year, as you said. He's 28 years old. But and by the way, he was not even on the injury report last season. Most people forget about that. Well, he turns 28 in December, but nevertheless, Carson, it's not really about injuries anymore. It's can he just be a little bit more consistent with the accuracy and his mechanics. That's the next thing, Mike, to answer your question.
Yep.
That's what he's got to get back to, that 17 pristine mechanics.
Real quick, the conversations that the team is having with Ertz, can they afford to pay Ertz what these other guys are getting?
Yeah, this is a big challenge. So I'd reported back at the Combine that there would be no extension for Ertz until both sides figure out what the numbers are going to look like, and that happened. The contracts came out for George Kittle in particular and Kelsey, and they've been talking, I'm told, for well over a week. I know the news came out earlier a couple of days ago, but they've been talking for well over a week. It's going to be difficult because, Mike, the Eagles, as you know, they like to extend contracts early in players' career. Well, the Eagles can, if he has a good season, Dallas Goedert, they could extend it after this season, and I would think that they would. If he has a breakout season, knowing the way that they work, I'm sure they'll look to extend his contract. So then the issue is with Ertz, when you look at his situation, yeah, he's still at the top of his game. By the way, he's lost absolutely nothing. But how much could you really pay him? He's making just over $8 million over the final 2 years. But from Zach's standpoint, remember, there's no guaranteed money left, and they've asked him to renegotiate his contract several times, probably 4 times over the last couple of years. Actually, over a 4-year period, they've done it, where they convert some money to create cap space. He's done right by the club. So that both sides want to get a deal done, but Mike, you set it up well. It's very, very challenging. I think it's a little bit more simplistic than people think, because Zach's got to get fully guaranteed money next year so that he knows that they're not going to cut him. He's going to want to get 2 years of it. He's going to want to get next year and the year after. That's the key here. When Zach turns 31, I don't know if the Eagles are going to want to do that, so it's going to be a little bit tricky.
All right, we'll leave with this. It just came down a little while ago as the Eagles have announced that they will not have fans for at least the first couple of weeks of the season. I guess no surprise.
Yeah, I was expecting not only that to happen, I'd be very surprised if we see fans at Eagles games this season. I really would be.
Yeah, no fans until further notice is how they're kind of playing it. I know the Steelers announced the first 2 weeks they won't have fans. You've seen some teams around the league kind of put stuff out, but the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the city of Philadelphia confirmed today that hosting fans at the link will not be permitted until further notice. So there you go for the season ticket holders. He is Adam Caplan at Caplan NFL and at Caplan NFL, the NFL Insider, the Inside the Birds podcast, and Football at 4 each Thursday with us. Tomorrow, Andrew DeCecco is back to talk a little Birds. Big news today, Andre Dillard done for the year. Adam, appreciate it.
Guys, thank you.
He, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline, and Football at 4 is brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250.